we're going to look now at Italy and their tournament review.
Well, it's another season, another pointless season in more ways than one. 0-0 on the table at the end of it all, and
didn't go chasing the 4 tries in any of those games.
Chase the 4 tries, which is all I ask of them every week. It's all I ask of them, in much the same way I would ask Zebre to just go for 4 tries when they were playing Saracens away from home or something. I'd just be like, why are you coming here trying to kick threes and think you're in a game when you're really not? You're just getting blown away, and you're going to have precisely 4 chances or maybe 2.5 chances in the whole game, and they all need to be points.
I mean, overall, I don't think we can spend too much time on Italy here, because we've talked them to death probably in recent times. I mean, we all know they're just a level below. I think if they were, I think the only real intrigue about Italy at the moment is the question mark of
do they stay in the Six Nations?
Yeah, well, that's the one point. But regardless of whether or not they stay in the Six Nations, it must be addressed that they're just not playing enough games at their level. Because they aren't at this level. What's the point in pretending that they're at this level? If they're going to be, with the CVCD team ring fenced into the Six Nations for the foreseeable future, in summer and autumn they have to play games against the tier 2 sides. Why are they they don't need to play the All Blacks. They get enough.
They don't deserve to play the All Blacks.
No, they get enough of being hammered in the Six Nations. I think in the games this summer and in the games in the autumn, they need games against the Rugby Europe sides, against Georgia certainly, as we all talk about.
What they need is the Autumn Nations Cup, the world ranking divided Autumn Nations Cup. They need to be playing against Samoa. They need to be playing against USA. They need to be playing against Georgia. Big Georgia. The big elephant in the room.
They're at a tier 2 level, and those are the games they need to be playing. And at that level, there's scope for confidence. They scored a try in every game, which is not something that you could bank on every tier 2 team doing.
No, and it's not something they did last year, and it's not something Italy teams have tended to do. They have tended to lose every game, but they haven't scored a try in every game, and that's the positive that I think I can glean from it. Because the other factor is it's on points difference and points accrued. It's the worst Six Nations of any team ever, and worst Five Nations, and that's obviously no good. And it does just speak to they're a tier 2 team. They're a tier 2 team in a tier 1 comp, and it's no good for them. You can't argue. I know the financial differences between. Oh, well, that's it. And the other argument is that English fans and Irish fans love an away trip to Rome, that they get to go to the sunshine and see their team running some tries.
Love it? No, how can you grow the game in Italy when you're asking the fans to just watch repeated defeats? I mean, you could argue that Italy are a better team than Georgia, but I would argue certainly that game is closer than Georgia against anyone in Rugby Europe or Italy against anyone in the Six Nations. That game would be closer than any of those games.
And therefore a better game.
But Georgia have so much more positivity in I was watching their game at the weekend, and they had loads of fans in the stadium, and there was positivity. They were obviously winning games and winning rugby, and that's how you grow the game. When Italy are just losing every week, I mean, the casual sport fan in Italy must have no interest in rugby. How could you? Your national team just gets destroyed on a weekly basis, and it's just pointless. Nobody's watching. I can't imagine anyone's watching.
It's tough.
I think if they had fans in the Stadio Olimpico this year, it would have been less than half empty.
I would say so. It's a tough sell when that's all that's happening. And again, because they're in this tier 1 bracket that they thoroughly don't belong in, they are going to more often than not get a winter game against South Africa or something more readily than they'll play Georgia. They played Georgia precisely once several years ago. Was it 2018? In a kind of goofy start of autumn kind of thing. They had already played Ireland the week before. Georgia were coming in without having played any rugby, and they played a game in Italy that Italy did win, but only by a small enough margin.
28-17.
28-17. Tight enough game. And
I mean, they were the better team.
They were the better team, undeniably, on that
game,
day.
And they won it.
That's a much better sell if they were playing games like that week on week in a tournament format in Autumn Nations Cup, but even touring as well. It would make more sense for them to tour Uruguay than it would them to tour the All Blacks.
I agree. I think they have to play. I think there has to be other tier 2 competitions brought in, like we talk about the autumn window as a great use for it, but regardless of whether or not they bring in an Autumn Nations Cup, which we'd agree with, where you have like 4 teams, we've gone over this in the past, divided by world ranking, and there's promotion relegation,
and there's like 6 divisions as
well.
Exactly.
So all the way down to whatever 24 ranked in the world, and Italy would be somewhere in the middle there, duking it out with the likes of Tonga, and maybe their bad world ranking would be shown up as not quite accurate because they've been losing games because they have to play tier 1 sides. Maybe they bounce up and go up a division.
Well, it's tough. Like, but they haven't actually played a competitive game since that Georgia game in 2018, because even in the World Cup they had, was it Namibia and Canada in their groups, who were the 2 worst teams. Well, Canada in particular, I'm convinced, was the worst team at that World Cup. And Namibia, I thought were going to get their first ever World Cup win, but they didn't get to play them. But in both of those matchups, Italy were just way better than them, and just way worse than South Africa, and they didn't end up playing New Zealand. But if they had, it would have looked the same way. So it's like they genuinely haven't had a competitive game since they played Georgia now 3 years ago. And it's like, come on, you got to get them more games that the crowd can be excited about.
Exactly, and I don't know if they're developing without a bit more competition. But as it is, they have like. They have a real problem with just bringing intensity from the off. They have a problem with their defense. They've seemingly a problem just with the mental. Probably mental issues with the squad. The mentality of the squad.
As opposed to Georgia, where Georgia win every game and then meet a tier 1 side and get shocked that that's the level, and that's their dynamic. Italy just lose every game and lose it badly, and there's just no confidence when they go into a team or into a game in any Six Nations.
There's only so many times you can be told we have to start at 100 miles an hour and get an early try, and then even when they did that against England and against Scotland, it didn't matter. They ended up just losing just the same. So there's some good moments, there's some good players. Montijuani on the wing deserves a shout out. He's their player of the tournament for me.
Think so. Himself or Varney, but Varney missed one game, but then he was noticeable for his absence. But I thought Varney was very good.
Garbisi's a fine player. That halfback pairing is decent. Their offense looks a little better for having them.
Meyer hustled all game, especially with the absence of Pelledri and Stain, who were their guys. Meyer was very impressive, and Negri as well.
Some good players. For me, Montijuani is still their player of the tournament, but overall just a level below, and it's unfortunate. They can't really take much in the way of positives from the tournament. They got stuffed every week.
Well, what's their best moment of the tournament then? Is it
one of the
Montijuani tries, or the Sperandio try, which was lovely as well?
The Ioane try against England, which they scored within 5 minutes. That was actually, there was some sharp handling in that, and it was probably their offensive picture, moving the ball quickly, getting to the extremities and putting them in. It was sharply taken. That was probably the moment. Also, at that stage, they were in the lead, and who knows what could happen then.
Indeed. Negative moments. The threes they kicked in every game, apart from the Wales one, because they didn't get given the chance because Wales were just that clinical, particularly in the first quarter. But any of the threes they kicked, I'm going to put down as a negative, because they only scored so many times. Indeed. They all need to be sevens.
It's a tough team to grade. I mean, there's some building going on. There's some decent offense. There's some decent players. But is
Franco going to stick around for it? He looked thoroughly distraught by the end. The TV producers by the end of their campaign were deciding that the only intrigue left in the Italy game was just how frustrated Franco Smith was going to look in his coaching box, because they just mercilessly panned to him after every good moment from the other team.
It's brutal. There's some good coaching going on offensively, but I'd like to put it together. They have to marry that with the toughness up front that they haven't, frankly, which is obviously a serious issue for them. But overall, it's just
it's like the 5 you're ranking the season.
It's just an NA kind of thing. Like it's just. Like they're a level below, and none of the 5 teams were off enough this year. Like England were the most off, and that was the closest game, but they were all pretty close to good, and they're only going to get better because they've got World Cups to be worried about. All those 5 teams ahead of Italy, and they're going to grow at a faster rate than Italy are, and I don't know that the gap is going to be any closer in the years to come, and they did feel like pointless games this year.
They did, yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't dislike Italian rugby. I like Italian rugby a lot. I wish it well, but I just wonder if this is right. I don't know if it is.
Yeah,
it just seems pointless.
Well,
it seems like it's doing harm.
All it seems to serve is to pad the stats of the big guns in the tournament by giving them one win and loads of tries, so they get their positive points difference up. And unlike this year, it promises a trip to Rome, which I think a lot of people are more fancying than a trip to Tbilisi, and that is a big impasse for a lot of the like in terms of maintaining the status quo.
Yeah, maybe a little.
That's why the tourists want to go over to the Stadio Flaminio and score some tries, or the Stadio Olimpico and score some tries, and it's that's an issue because it's at their expense. But that's the only defence I can think of to ring fence. And I think that's probably what's winning the argument at the moment, and it's a shame because they.
Is there a more consequential team in rugby than the class Italian team of the 90s with Diego Dominguez?
Is there a more valuable team? Because they got them into this. They played so well that they were undeniable that they got into the Six Nations. And now ever since, if you were to factor up all the money that Italy have had pumped into them from revenue generated by the Six Nations, like that is it's doubtless at least quadruple the amount that has ever been or ever will be in Fiji. More than that. And Fiji have offered a lot more to World Rugby throughout history, I think, than Italy, even despite that team.
I don't think you could argue that.
But it's a crazy thing that they've managed to get into the Six Nations and are now in a state where they're stuck in there seemingly perpetually, and it's not ideal for them. It's not ideal for the tournament. It's just the way things are. It's a disappointing campaign, as it always is, because it's a tough sell when you're getting pumped every week.
Unfortunate for Italy, but here's hoping they get one of these years they manage to put it all together and have their best possible showing with their best possible players, which I think for many tier 2 teams, not just them, can be enough to compete. And let's hope we see more of that, and let's hope we see more competitive games from Italy going forward. That's the real,
or even competitive quarters. Seeing them in the first quarter.
What I mean by competitive games, like playing at their level. I want to see them play Tonga. I want to see them play Samoa, Fiji, Georgia.
I want to see how all those games go.
USA.
Yeah, we don't see it, and it's a constant debate where it's like, how good are Italy actually? Well, we don't know. They just get pumped by teams much better than them. So it's like, why don't you let them play Namibia, who never play any games seemingly apart from the World Cup?
It's a problem. It's a problem. Anyway, we'll move on from Italy. It's a sour note to end on, but it was a great Six Nations tournament.
100% triumphant tournament.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for watching the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you enjoyed that video, be sure to give it a like, share with your friends, and leave a comment down below as well. We really do want to hear your thoughts.